Hey everybody, welcome to Notes from Hollywood on PromoHomo.TV. I'm your host, Nicholas Snow, and this episode is about Lesbian Game Changers. Now, my personal relationship with lesbians began very powerfully in my college years in a particular class where I ended up in a group process creating an original piece of interpreters theater with I can't remember if all three women I ended up with were lesbians, but I think they were, and we all came out, and this was in 1985 at Arizona State University. On today's show, I have Robin Lowey, who's the author and designer of the award-winning book Game Changers, Lesbians You Should Know About, and co-creator of the short film series Game Changers, Impacting LGBT Culture. The Lesbian Game Changers Project's mission is to educate young adults by providing schools with valuable resource books and films that help fill the gap in education about lesbian history and foster an atmosphere of LGBTQ+ visibility, inclusion, acceptance, and pride. Game Changers is a fun, inspirational, and an informative history book and film series featuring modern lesbian role models who help shape today's queer culture. With me on the show in a few minutes, Robin Lowey. But first, some video about her project. But before that, I just want to let you know that Notes from Hollywood is one of 5 different shows on the PromoHomo.TV network. I'm producing these shows in a pipeline of regular content, which you can follow on all my social media and at the website PromoHomo.TV. If you go to PromoHomo.TV and you look in the About section, there's information on how to submit guests to the show. So if you think you or someone that you know is a relevant guest for one of the 5 shows, there's instructions on how you can submit guest ideas to the show. With that, let's watch this exciting video about Robin Lowey's Game Changers used with permission.
Is on a mission. Her dining room table is stacked with copies of her new book, Game Changers, Lesbians You Should Know About. So far, Robin's donated around 1,500 copies, reaching 300,000 students. Robin's own journey as a lesbian mom of 2 sons inspired the book as a way to educate others.
I just figured, why not? I don't know anyone who's ever done anything quite like this, and I don't know where it came from, but it just kind of sprung out of me, and I've just been enjoying the ride.
The feedback I've received from students and educators has been phenomenal. I had a queer student come up and hug me during a high school presentation, thanking me for sharing these stories. We're both like crying, and I'm thinking, how can I do more? Let's face it, kids love digital media, so I decided to produce 12 short films featuring lesbian game changers from the book and new ones. These films are in line with my mission: to foster an atmosphere of LGBTQ visibility and inclusion.
When I was growing up, and when I first came to consciousness as a lesbian, I thought I was the only lesbian in the state of Utah because I never saw myself reflected in any story. Look, I'm almost 60 years old, but it is appalling to me that in my lifetime, when I was growing up, there were not stories about who I was.
That's what we need to do. We need to provide those images and those representations.
If you do not see yourself reflected in stories about people who came before you, it is very hard to chart a path for yourself and believe in a future.
There are stories that we could share with our children and our children's children.
It's so important to have game changers, offering the representation of lesbians who have made an impact, so that the young people can see themselves represented.
I was raised in Marin County by 2 lesbian moms. As I grew up, I noticed that we were never taught about gay people or their history. Gay slurs were rampant around campus, and that's something that I always had to deal with.
You know, imagine that. Like, your kids grow up in so much pain and depression because they can't be themselves.
And it is awesome to be LGBTQ. It is something that should be celebrated. It is something this culture should celebrate, but it's never going to be celebrated if the stories don't get told.
We have to support it financially and with as many resources as we can.
Thank you so much for considering donating to the Lesbian Game Changers film project.
The website is lesbiangamechangers.com. And if you go there, you're going to be finding more information, and you're going to see that website throughout the show when I bring Robin on. But I want you to know that if you are watching this episode live and comment, your question or comment may make it into the episode live like this. And I actually have 2 comments that I'm going to put up before I bring on Robin. And one is from Art Smith, who says, "Great project." And my friend Paula Paris, who says, "Thanks for this post, Nicholas." So that's just an example of how I can feature your questions or comments for Robin in the broadcast today. And with that, let's bring on Robin, lesbian game changer herself. Welcome to the show, Robin.
Hi, good to see you.
I'm so excited to meet you virtually.
Me too.
So hold up your book. I just want people to see what it looks like in the real world. That's just a beautiful book. I was impressed to learn that not only are you the creator of the book, but you're the designer of the book, and that you have decades of experience in graphic design.
That's the idea. Yeah, I was a kid who knew what I wanted to do from a young age. Loved graphic design.
One of the things that I was doing in preparing for our broadcast is I like to go to Amazon to find information. But interestingly, your book is not on Amazon. It's only available at lesbiangamechangers.com, which is a cool thing. But I'm curious to know if you have plans to put the book into a wider, more accessible distribution, or will it always be simply available through the website with you handling the distribution?
Well, Nicholas, the main reason for the book was to donate it to the schools. And so that being said, it is available for purchase through me. And the reason for that is that as a graphic designer, I'm kind of interested in substrates, paper, quality of printing. When you buy something on Amazon, typically it is one of these things called print on demand, and they just sort of print them as they go on digital paper. And I've already had them printed. I've already got them stored, and I don't know. Eventually, maybe they will be available for wider distribution. But right now, I've got them for the schools, and then I have a handful to sell for myself.
That's fantastic. I'm not being critical of your decision.
Yeah.
I was just curious how that came about and the actual quality of the art itself, because let's face it, the book is a work of art in so many different ways.
Thank you.
A book of art and activism. Now, I would love for you to just go through the names of the women featured in the book. I'm imagining that everyone in your book identifies as a woman, but that someone can be a lesbian and not necessarily have other pronouns that obviously go around with it. But I'd love for you to just go through briefly the people who are in the book.
Well, I have a few theys in there, I'm sure, here and there. But we have Monica Palacios, Paige Hodel, Jewel Gomez, Mariah Hansen, Donna Hitchens, Franco Stevens, Joan Antonuccio, Judy DeLugatz, Crystal Jang, Jenny Olson, Kate Kendall, Kathy Belge, Marga Gomez, Terry Wolverton, Kathy Wolf, Diane Anderson Minshall, Tony Armstrong Jr., Cheryl Dunye, Carla Trujillo, Eleanor Palacios, Glenda Corwin, Jody Cole, Catherine Gund, Tret Fuhr, Chris Carnes, Leslie Larson, Bonnie Morris, Gret Kammermeyer, Lee Lynch, and that's about it. There's many stuff in there.
That's a lot, and I actually...
There's a lot more women that are worthy that are not in here, and I hope to highlight some of them in the film series.
And there's a Game Changers 2 planned, right? A book? A
Well,
second book?
there was a Game Changers too, and I'm not sure how that's going to work. I might just switch it to doing the online films. In light of the current situation, it's really hard to have a paper book and have kids be able to access it in the library. And plus, I think the generation I'm trying to reach learns a lot online. So the idea is that they can log on and continue learning about these women. They have this one book and possibly a second one, but for now, I'm going to switch gears and kind of go to the film area with this.
That's great. So we have another comment from Sam Waterstone. Is he someone you know?
Yes.
He says, "This is so awesome. Love to see these lesbian leaders getting this exposure."
Nice.
You know, I know you have kids. Is that one of your kids?
Surprise. That's one of
The reason that I know that is because I felt like I recognized one of them from your video clip.
Yeah, he's in the clip. He's been a big champion of mine, and he's also in marketing and advertising. And he was raised by two moms, and he's one of two of my sons, and he's been a very big part of this all along, kind of advising me. Because he is the demographic. Well, he's a little older now, but when I started, he was basically the demographic for this book. And I was going into the classrooms. I went into his classroom and spoke about being a lesbian and breakdown stereotypes. And
do you mind if I ask you your age?
I'm 62.
Okay, so I'm 58. So I'm guessing you graduated from high school in 76?
Yep.
Okay, I graduated in 80. But we were both in high school at a time when the world was so dramatically different around
Absolutely.
LGBTQ awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And the thought that we would have role models or even discussion of these issues in the school system was, just beyond our wildest dreams. I'm wondering if you could reflect back to your own time in the mid 70s in school. Did you have an awareness of who you were, and what kind of conflict were you experiencing as the result of no visibility that supported you?
That's a great question. Thank you. Yeah, it was a torturous time for me. I was very conflicted. I definitely had crushes on my girlfriends and I didn't like it. I was horrified, to be honest. The only role models that I had were people like my PE teachers or some really bad things on TV or movies where, during that time, every lesbian or gay character, well, I was keyed in on the lesbian characters. They had to either die, go crazy, or go back to men by the end of the movie or book. So that was what I was looking at, and that's what I knew about, and it just seemed so unacceptable to me. And I tried very hard to be straight for a long time, and it was madness. It was rough.
What was the turning point for you when you decided to stop trying to be straight, as you put it?
Well, it's not linear. I kind of went back and forth. I went on a European summer in college where I studied art history in Italy, and I met another girl there who also had never experienced anything with another woman. So she and I kind of fell together, and that was a cool thing, but it was very hesitant and very awkward. And then I came back from that trip and went back with my boyfriend in college. I went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, so I went right back to that world. And then a couple years later, I finally met someone else, and that was when I actually sort of came out, because I just kind of thought, well, maybe I'm bi. And then it wasn't until I got with my partner for the next 27 years in 1982, who is the mother of both my boys. And she and I are no longer together, but it's amicable. And it wasn't until then that I really came out solid and never looked back.
Do you remember the first sort of public role model or film or book or media that helped you?
Yeah, I would say, well, actually, there really never was anything that I could grab onto, honestly. When Desert Hearts came out, I think it was 1985. I mean, I was already with my partner. We were at the Castro Theater. I mean, and that was the very first film that I had ever seen where with a positive representation of a love affair where it didn't end up with death, going crazy, or going back to men. So that was very exciting for us. But that was the first time I ever really saw anything that made sense to me. There was nobody. It was tough. So there's a lot of internalized homophobia to work through, even in the early years when you're out. You're not getting any positive reinforcement from society for your relationship. You know, and when we decided to have children, people asked us, well, how long have you been together? And it was like, well, 7 years. You know, would you ask a straight couple that after they've been together a while? You know, you'd be so
No,
happy.
and I think that you would assume that in this day and age that they might have already been pregnant before they were married.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we have a completely different view of, in terms of heterosexuals, about childbearing and whether or not you
Very
need to
well
be married
planned.
and
Our boys were
everything.
very well planned
Sure.
and wanted, and we were ready for them. We were mature. We were in our 30s. It wasn't an accident. You know?
Now, one of the things that, I mean, you're in the Bay Area, correct?
Yes.
So, my perception of the Bay Area, especially in the LGBTQI community, is that they're a bit farther ahead of the curve on understanding inclusion, intersectionality, classism, racism, privilege, the integration of all of these things. And so it's not surprising to me that your book is very inclusive, having been out for a while, at a time when these particular intersection of issues is at an all-time high. Had that occurred to you?
You know, I guess so. But the main impetus for me doing this was I just looked around one day and noticed that, well, there's several factors. One was that I knew so many women through my I'm one of these people that just knows a lot of people. And I knew so many impactful women who had done such great things. And then I was at the LGBT Speakers Bureau in my local community, going into the classroom and sort of hearing what the kids had to say, where they were at. And plus my own children coming home and reporting to me that they're still saying gay slurs on the playground. And I just felt like suddenly they changed this law in 2011 requiring LGBT education in the public school curriculum here in California. And that's also been passed in Colorado, New Jersey, and Illinois, I believe, the same law. And so I just thought, you know, I know these people. I love to do graphics. I've always wanted to do a book. Why not just go for it? And plus, I had been running a blog for lesbians for, gosh,
Apocalypse.
yeah, Apocalypse.
EPOCH ALIPS. Apocalypse. It's fantastic. Epic A lips. Apocalypse. EPOCHALIPS. It's fantastic.
So an epoch is a change or a shift in your life, and lips is a good lesbian word. So I came up with this silly name, but it's stuck, and I've developed a pretty big following and done hundreds of articles it's aimed towards older lesbians, and it's just to celebrate us and all the things we've done that are interesting. I mean, that was another thing that started. I looked around and saw that there was nothing for older lesbians, and that we're just such a weird and hated kind of group in general, like in the world at large. So I thought, well, let's be hip and cool and talk about the things we've done. And I just felt like the younger people maybe didn't understand that they're standing on the shoulders of women who came before them, who took great risks, like you were just speaking about. That's not necessarily the experience of kids today. That I don't know. In other parts of the country, it's still very hard. Here, it's a little easier, but it depends on the neighborhood or the place you live. And if you have no one to look up to, like Kate said in the video, it's really hard to just feel like you belong. And there's a lot of suicides, and it just struck me that this would be something fun that I could do. And then I thought, well, how on earth will I pay for it? And then I decided to try crowdfunding. I had been doing Apocalypse for maybe 7 years at that time, and I've never charged a penny for any of it. And well, people write for free too. So I was just pouring my heart into this fun thing that was not, I was giving back. And I thought, well, maybe it's time to just do an ask. And I was very fortunate to raise enough money to print all these books and then deliver them to the schools. So it's crowdfunded, and it's just kind of a cool model.
It's a beautiful project. We have another viewer remark from Art Smith. Proud to live in Tampa, Florida, where our current mayor and former police chief is an out and proud lesbian.
Awesome. Let's get her in the video series.
Yes. So I was asking you what influenced your coming out, and you also shared about exploring whether you may be bisexual before you ultimately realized that you were lesbian. And I had a similar experience. I had a serious girlfriend from my senior year in high school until my first year of college, and we ended up breaking up. But during that relationship, I was more honest about the fact that I might be bisexual, and ultimately. This is a very encapsulated journey, description of my journey, but I saw the movie Making Love with Harry Hamlin, Michael Ontkean, and Kate Jackson about the breakup of a 7-year marriage between Michael Ontkean and Kate Jackson character when he came out of the closet and had an affair with Harry Hamlin. It was a revolutionary film at the time and very influential. I also came out in the beginnings of the AIDS epidemic. As a communication major at Arizona State University, recovering from my own conservative Republican upbringing. And one of the things that was instilled upon me when I was seeing people around me die was that the most valuable thing I had to offer was my own life force, my own voice, and the expression of my own truth. So that's how my journey came to my genesis as an activist. And I'm curious, as you put your work out into the world, it clearly evokes the expression of so much truth from other people. Do you have some particular anecdotes of responses to the book that stand out in your mind?
Oh, absolutely. What the main one, of course, you heard a little bit about it in the video if you were on yet. I went into a local high school and had a young woman just come up to me in tears, and she was just so blown away that I was really there and that I was the author of this book that had made her feel so validated in her world. And she's just so excited, and I think she represented a lot of other kids. I had a lot of positive feedback from the youngsters when I went into the schools. Did a formal gift giving of the book to Mission High, and there were a couple girls who came out and posed with us for pictures with Mark Leno and Jewel Gomez. We had the press there, and it was kind of a fun thing just to see the excitement, and also the teachers. I've worked with several teachers who are thrilled to have this book in their schools. And there's also this thing called a wellness center, which is often at high schools where kids can go in and just like hang out when they're having maybe some social issues at their school, or they just don't feel like they belong, or maybe they say they're sick. I'm going to go into the office. It's basically this wellness center place. If they're lucky enough, they have these, and that's where many of the books landed, and they're just placed on the table in there. So when kids wander in and feel like misfits, they can find this book and thumb through it. And I've had great success with the women some of the women have told me who run the wellness centers, how important that's been for these students to sort of stumble on it in that aspect, not even in the classroom, but just at their campus.
We were talking a bit earlier about the progress that has been made, at least in terms of what's accessible to youth today versus what we had access to when we were in high school, for example. But there is more public hate in our world today targeting our community, sanctioned by the evil that occupies the White House, among others. And there are people who are trapped in families, lives, communities, churches, structures, environments that teaches them to hate and have contempt for themselves. So while the world might be different for many, the world is precisely the same for others as it was for us decades ago in the darkness. So there is never an end to the need for work like you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. There's no way. It's so much fun too because it feels important, and I love doing it, and it's just been a win-win all the way around.
So for viewers that are watching, I just want to share with Robin and with the rest of you, Notes from Hollywood is specifically interviewing people that have some connection to the entertainment industry. In this case, Robin has a book and she's working on a film. One of my other shows, The Nicholas Snow Show, is geared toward a global discussion of LGBTQ activist-related topics, among other things. And I know that a lot of you who are watching might be appropriate guests for that show. So I want to encourage you to go to PromoHomo.TV and click the About section to find out how to submit story ideas to me. Speaking of your film, Robin, where is your film in development and how can people support it?
Well, thank you for asking that. Yeah, well, what I'm doing right now is I've received a grant for the first 3 segments, and I've just finished. We were just finishing the very first film about Kate Kendall. It's an 8-minute short film, and then there's 2 more on tap that we have all the footage, and we're going to be editing those together. And that's for Michelle Miao and Olga Talamonte. And these 3 segments, all in the short film realm, will become available to the kids at the schools, and we'll make sure that they have access to those links, and it'll live on my site more or less. But the idea at that point is to try to fundraise again and raise enough money to do 12 films in total, and then that effort will probably happen in late fall. I'll be doing some kind of Indiegogo Kickstarter fundraising thing, and then at any time that you would like to participate and have your name on the credits of the films, you could just donate $25 on the site Lesbian Game Changers, and then if you donate $25, then I send you your very own signed book. How about that? So that's the idea for now, is to just keep on keeping on, finish the first 3, make an effort to raise enough money, and also apply for grants to do as many as I can. We have 12 figured out. And then at that point, Nicholas, is when we plan on edit. My partner, Eliza Carlson, and she's the filmmaker and the editor, and I'm managing the content and working very closely with her on all these. So what the idea is that at that point we will make a documentary film of stringing together the best parts of all of these. And that will be something really fun that maybe we could submit to festivals or something, but that's really just on the back burner as a plan. The main goal is to just get these women, these beautiful little films up so kids can access them and learn. Like, say you're writing a report and you just want to find out more, you can find these things that are going to be easily accessible to the public.
I love that. I'd love to just share with you my connection to 3 of the lesbians featured in your book.
Right.
So my awareness of Jenny Olsen was paramount when she created Popcorn Q and was very much involved with Planet Out, and I want to say that was the late 90s. Mm-hmm. And I have had the opportunity to interview Mariah Hansen on multiple occasions and have covered her Dinah events for at least a decade.
Right.
And even though this show is called Notes from Hollywood, I am physically based in Palm Springs, California. And Palm Springs has a love affair with Kate Kendall, as does Kate with Palm Springs. And the current mayor of Palm Springs, Jeff Kors, and Kate Kendall have been colleagues in activism for a long time. And the National Center for Lesbian Rights, of which Kate used to be the head, also has a really strong connection to the desert. And I don't know if I've ever met Terry Wolverton personally, but when I was living in the LA area in the 90s, she was definitely extremely prominent in the literary community. And I just think that it's great that you're giving people their own opportunities to get to know these true game changers. Is there anything
Thank
that
you.
you would? You're welcome, and congratulations. Now, I don't know how we became connected on Instagram. Maybe that was your doing, or maybe it was mine. But that's how I knew about you, and I thought I need to reach out to this woman and have her on my show.
Love it.
Is there anything?
I've been trying to grow my Instagram lately. So also, if anybody's at all interested, please join me on at Lesbian Game Changers on Instagram.
Is that also your Twitter handle?
No, my Twitter handle is the apocalypse thing. I have not necessarily integrated everything all that well yet.
No worries. At Lesbian Game Changers on Instagram and added.com, as you can see under Robin's name. Is there anything you would like to add that we haven't talked about so far in our interview today?
Well, there's just perhaps an interesting factoid about when I did the book. The women wrote their own stories, and my role was more as an editor and a curator. I was asking them to describe in detail an aha moment or a time when their life really changed. And so they gave me these essays, and some were more buttoned up than others. Many of them were really long, and I had to edit them down. But the key to who I chose for the book, a lot of people people take issue with who I chose, who I didn't choose. And it's all really just from my heart, people I knew that I chose, that I like. This is what we get to do when we do our own thing. So it's not really open to discussion like who, but one of the main criteria was were they able to provide me with this essay, and were they able to provide me with all these pictures that I used in the illustrated timeline. Each person in the book has an illustrated timeline. Here's Mariah's. So this is Mariah Hansen. So they have to send me their baby pictures and their whole story of their life.
I'm going to make you full screen. Keep holding it up. That's fantastic.
And then, I have a really good one in here too from, I love the one from Monica Palacios. This one is brilliant. So it's just this fun timeline. So I'm thinking, I wanted kids to be interested and sort of see us as, wow, we're not just old gray-haired ladies. We were once young and vibrant and did all these amazing things. And it was a time, like you were saying, that it wasn't at all easy to be out. And if you were trying to be a businesswoman, you were taking a huge risk to be out. And so that's why another fact is that I don't have as many women of color in here as I would like. And that is partly because they had, more than one strike against them to be successful in business back in the day. And that's the criteria is that they're over 50. They made a serious cultural contribution to the culture that affects us now. So I have a few women of color that are brilliant, and I hope to bring in some more when I do the films. And I've lowered my age too, because I figure there's a lot of women that are younger that have done amazing things. And I've just decided to kind of spread out. And you asked also about the women that didn't necessarily identify as lesbians. There is one of my favorites in here is Diane Anderson Minshall, who is now the head of the whole Pride Media. And she was the editor in chief of Curve magazine, and then the Advocate. And before that, she worked with me on a magazine called Girlfriends magazine. So we have a direct connection. But her partner, her life partner, husband now, was once not her husband. And I don't want to, out of respect, refer to him as anything other than Jacob. But there was a transition that happened, and now she is with Jacob, and they are, she still considers herself a lesbian. Jacob's just a gorgeous man, and they're just a wonderful couple. So and they live nearby you too. You probably have heard of them. I think they were living in Hammett for a while. I don't know that they're there now. But basically, I was thrilled to be able to weave in a trans aspect to this book in particular, because it started out as lesbians, and then you take a lot of heat about why are you using the word lesbian? And it's like, well, because that was our name. We didn't have another choice. There was no in between. There was no queer, fluid, anything. When we came out, we had to just choose, right? So that's why I think it's important to continue to use that word in this case, and it doesn't have to be trans negative in any sense of the word, which is also a question.
Yeah, you raise an important point, and without getting into anyone's particular story, I mean, unfortunately, we have identities that are based on all kinds of labels and constructs that in some ways have served us to reach equality, for example, being identified as the LGBTQ community. But ultimately, we're all humans, and there are pronouns that we use to describe our gender identity. There are programs that we use to provide our sexual orientations, and so many different things. And there's the mix of it all, which is why I love it that people are starting to declare their pronouns, because one of the key points in declaring one's pronouns is that you're acknowledging that I cannot tell by someone's appearance what their pronouns are, who they know themselves to be, and who they want to express as and identify as. So this is a learning curve for all of us, and our history is certainly a big part of that.
It is, yeah.
Well, I'm very honored that you've been on the show today, Robin, and I want to invite all of the people in your book to contact me to be on my shows. And please follow up with me when as your movie develops, because my platform continues to grow and expand, and it's my life's work and passion to express my creativity in a way that makes a difference, and you are certainly making a difference.
Thank you. I love it. I love it what you're doing over there.
Thank you. You mentioned one of the questions that people asked in the interview in their essays, the answer to, in their essays, and I like to ask a similar question of people that I interview, including on the red carpet. I find a lot of red carpet interviews to be rather mundane when there really is an example to ask a question like this, which I want to ask you.
Okay.
Was there a key moment in your life or an event that truly inspired you to follow your dreams?
Yes. I was in this long-term marriage with another woman for 27 years, and when our older son left for college and we were both in our early 50s, things didn't work out and we split. And that was a terrifying time for me because I had been with her since I was 24 years old. And at the same time, I think it was around 2008 when the bottom fell out of the economy. And I was in advertising for many years, had a great career. And then I kind of was aging out at that point. So I had recently been laid off. And so here I was with a 13-year-old half-time and no job. And I wasn't anxious to try to go back to that. So I, at that moment, was in the process of redefining myself and figuring out who I was. I had spent so many years just raising kids and being so involved in their lives and Little League coach and whatever. And it now was kind of my time. It was my time, and it was like, there's that moment when you're in your 50s, for me at least, where I realized, there's probably more yesterdays than tomorrows in my life, and there's no more time to waste doing things that don't matter to me. And so at that point, I thought, well, what matters to me? And that's when I started the Apocalypse blog. And there was a lot of grassroots effort there. Every festival, you had to have a booth and hand out cards and talk to people. And I built a following. And then that was a turning point where I just felt like I don't do what's in my heart to do. And also, one quick aside is that as a graphic designer, my role has always been to produce other people's work and ideas, and in advertising too. And so this was the first project that I've ever done in my life. Just like if I was, many graphic designers are painters and artists on the side, and they do graphic design to make a living. I've always been just the graphic designer. That was what I loved, the lettering, the layout. So this is the first project that I ever grabbed hold of that was actually all mine from start to finish, and that's why I've held on so tight to the design and the people and the printing, and it's kind of like a little piece of art that I get to give away, and now with the films, it's very similar. So it's just, I feel like we have to follow our hearts. We have to do what matters. We have to make a difference in the world. Leave stuff behind. I mean, that's just all there really is at the end of the day. Is what matters.
I couldn't have said that better. I'm just showing the cover of your book again, Game Changers. Find it at Lesbian Game Changers.com. And I'm just really honored to have spent this time today and to have captured these moments in my own archive of my life's work and yours. And I love one of the phrases that is paramount in the 12-step communities of which I am a part, and more shall be revealed.
Me too. I'm a friend of Bill's, everybody.
Fantastic. That makes two of us.
Okay.
And I have a show called Higher Powered, by the way, which takes recovery out of the closet. So people who want to consider appearing on that show, go to PromoHomo.TV. Robin, thanks again, and I will see you next time.
Thank you very much.
And if you want to hang out, I'll talk to you for a moment after the show. And for those of you who are watching, periodically I do a particular episode and I thought, wow, that was one of the reasons I was alive for, so I could have this conversation for humanity. And you might find that to be grandiose, that I would think that any of my conversations would be suitable for all of humanity. But that is what we have within us. We have the ability to impact change for all humanity. And you are among the people that have the ability to do that. So I just want to thank you so much for watching. And I actually forgot to play one of my videos at the top of the show. So I'm going to play it now, as well as the video I would usually show at the end of the show. And thanks again for watching.